All right, so hi everyone. I'm Kelly. I am the foster and intake manager with Operation Kindness, and today we are here to talk about ringworm, fun with fungus. So, how to treat ringworm in your home. We're very excited to start allowing our fosters to treat ringworm in the home because it is something that we just see a lot of in the shelter, especially right now. So why do we need your help? So lots of animals across the country are euthanized all the time because of ringworm, and it's something that is very treatable. It's just something that is in the environment, and just where we're located, being in Texas, we just get a lot of it. So it's very prevalent in the area. And many shelters, they don't have isolation areas. They don't have the medical team to be able to treat them. And so in order to protect the rest of their population, they often have to make the decision to euthanize. And so we're really looking in the future to be able to help these shelters and intentionally take in the ringworm and treat it. But right now we have so many ringworm kittens of our own that we're not able to do that. So hopefully we can get to that point. We can also just save so many more animals by having them go out to foster. So currently we have, I have on here that we have 48 kittens and one puppy that are positive for ringworm. So that means we need to find fosters for all of them. This is taking up 3 rooms in our medical wing, which is a lot of space. Normally we only have 1 room, and right now we have 3 occupied with ringworm, which is a lot. So if we can get any of these guys out to foster, it'll be a huge help. And what I've seen, and I got these numbers, I believe it was in 2019 during kitten season, that the kittens that I'd sent out to foster, they recovered in half the time as the kittens that were being treated in the shelter. And that, I mean, that's a significant portion of their life when they're only 4 months.
Is that interfering with you at all?
If they're only 4 months old and they spent 3 of those months in a kennel being treated for ringworm, that is going to affect them long term. So by getting them into a foster home to where they can get adopted faster because they recover faster is really important. And then also just keeping in mind that these animals, we try to do the best we can in the shelter, but as you can imagine, if we have almost 50 animals that we're having to do dips on and medicate on top of all the other animals that we're currently treating, it's a very quick process, and you're just trying to give them the medication that they need. And it can be really stressful for these animals, and getting them in a foster home, they're going to get that socialization that they need in a really critical time in their life during, it's typically puppies and kittens that are, they're still learning everything. So by putting them in a foster home, they're going to be able to get that normal household experience during their treatment instead of being isolated, which is really important. So that's why we're really excited to be able to have fosters to help us out with these guys. So our goals for today, so we'll cover what is ringworm, the general treatment, care and precautions you should take while you have them in your home, and then cleaning and disinfection. So first, if you haven't seen this graphic, I included it in my general fostering presentation that I did a little over a month ago. But it's really important when you think about this with your own animals at home, when you're fostering a lot and you have multiple litters, over a few months, keeping in mind that anything can become a fomite. So fomite is any object or material that can carry disease. So anything, like if I walk into a room and there's a kitten sneezes on me, if a dog sneezes on me, I become a fomite. So until you remove that from yourself, then you're still considered a fomite. So in this example, a food bowl's in a room, and then we have a bunch of ringworm cats in there. You can remove all the cats, but if the food bowl is still in there and it hasn't been sanitized, that's still a fomite. So that can still harbor spores so that the next animals that are in there, if they use that bowl, then they're exposed to those spores. So wanting to keep that in mind when you have animals in your home, whether you're intentionally fostering ringworm or not. I would say most of the kittens that we currently are treating for ringworm have been in a foster home already. And we'll kind of go into that, how that all plays out. But it is something that we really recommend isolating these kittens so that, and puppies. I know it's harder for the puppies just because they're bigger, but especially for the kittens, so that they are not going to potentially spread something within your home into future fosters. So what is ringworm? The name is very misleading, but it is not a worm. It's actually a fungus or a dermatophyte. There's a few different species. The most common is the Microsporum canis, and that affects dogs and cats, primarily in cats. And the fungus itself is feeding on the keratin in the hair or fur. So when I'll have a picture of it in a few slides, but when we are examining these cats upon intake, we're wood slamping every cat that comes into the shelter, just because we are taking lots of extra precautions right now because we do have so much ringworm on site. When you use the wood lamp, it's just like a UV lamp. You'll see that the actual hair itself will glow. It's not necessarily the skin. The fungus is eating away at the hair. So you'll see that each individual hair is going to be glowing. It's not so much the skin, which there's lots of other things that glow, urine, feces, certain medications will glow, and that all is not, it looks different. It's not the actual hair itself that is glowing. The symptoms you'll see is the hair loss, red, inflamed, scaly skin. It's typically in a circular pattern. And then you can also see broken whiskers, and that's because if the fungus is, sometimes you'll see it on the little like circular area where their whiskers come out of, and that fungus, it'll attach to the whisker and it'll eat away at the whisker itself, and then it'll break off. So that is something that you might see. It is possible if you have multiple kittens that they're chewing on each other's whiskers, but if it's a single kitten, it's very suspicious. And you'll typically see this on all the extremities. So the ringworm spores, they're out in the environment where all these kittens are coming from. They're all just being born to stray moms, and they're having their kittens out, under a bush or, under someone's shed or something like that. And the ringworm spores are just all over the place. And so it's in between their toes, it gets on their ears, their tail, all those little extra areas, their face. And that's where you'll typically see lesions first pop up. The transmission is through direct contact with the fungus. Like I said, if it's in the soil, things like that, fomites. So if you foster kittens that end up having ringworm, you want to make sure that you are deep cleaning everything, making sure that you don't have fomites in your home that could possibly transmit it to future kittens. And then just keeping in mind that spores can remain in the environment for a really long time. So just waiting on time is not necessarily going to work. You definitely need to disinfect. It is something that is zoonotic. And so taking proper precautions for yourself, for those in your family. Some people are more susceptible than others. I've fostered lots of ringworm kittens, and I've only gotten it twice over the last decade, and that was the very first time I ever fostered, and they of course had ringworm, and I had no idea, and they had already been all over my house, and the damage had been done. And the other time was bottle babies that I had, and they of course I was like loving on them, kissing on them, and then I got it on my cheeks. So if you're taking the proper precautions, you're not going to spread it everywhere. But if you're letting them run all over your house and sleep on your bed, on your pillow, giving them kisses, that is going to increase your chances of getting it significantly. So just keeping in mind that you want to protect yourself and your skin. And then also thinking about when the lesions pop up, it's typically in 7 to 14 days. Sometimes it can take a little bit longer. But that's why I always recommend keeping your fosters isolated for at least 14 days. And that way, if anything is going to pop up, it's usually within that window. So this is kind of a timeline on how this all happens. So day one, it's a found little stray running around outside, getting covered with all sorts of fun things out in the outdoors. Then it gets picked up, goes to a municipal shelter. It's still a clean, nice little kitten. It is very stressed out. It doesn't know where its mom is. Maybe it was separated from its siblings. It's never been inside before. All things that are very new and stressful. And then it's at this municipal shelter, and then we go and see them, and we're like, this kitten's adorable, we should take it with us and send it out to foster. And so within 5 days, it's gone through several moves, very stressful time. And then it finally goes to a foster home after a week from being removed from the environment. And then you put it in a room with carpet and chairs and all these things that can potentially be fomites. And then day 14, oh, these kittens look a little scabby. You know, there's a little spot there. Their ears look a little red. And you're like, this looks a little suspicious. I'm going to submit a medical form. And then day 16, they come in, and this is what it looks like when it is glowing under the woods lamp. So you'll see the bright fluorescent green color. So whenever there's a stressful event, that is going to make their immune system more compromised. And so because of that, they become more susceptible to upper respiratory, ringworm, if they're exposed to internal parasites. And so if they're already coming in rough shape, this can also affect their ability to fight off the ringworm spores. This is why we see so many kittens that end up getting it. If it's an adult cat, they are much less likely to get it just because their immune system is it's a lot more developed, and so they're able to fight off the ringworm spores. So this is typically what it will look like. Excuse me. You'll see little circular lesions. This poor little kitten in the middle, I mean, she's just covered in it from head to toe. So you'll see the toes there, around the eyes, very common. And then in between those crusty little toes, you'll see it. See puppies, they'll have little circular spots all over. This is kind of a less obvious one, but it's just kind of this scaly sort of lesion on the back of the ear, which it already doesn't have a lot of fur there, but when you see it scaly and crusty like that, it's very suspicious. And these guys, this is a litter that I had fostered, and there were 5 of them, and it wasn't any super obvious circular lesions, but they just kind of were generally crusty. So you would see like a spot under the chin, the edges of the ears were really red and inflamed. And they just kind of had, like, when you use the woods lamp, it just looked like confetti was kind of all over them. And so this, sometimes you'll see where certain cats and kittens, they have this uniform thinning of hair that is above their eyes, and it goes like from above their eye to their ear, and that's not ringworm. That is, as long as it looks uniform on both sides. Some cats have more thinning there than others. I would say don't worry about it. If it looks uneven, where one side is much thinner than the other, then that could be a suspicious spot. But as long as it looks even, then it should be okay. And then this is what it looks like under that woods lamp. So you'll see the bright fluorescent green. You can see here, it's kind of all throughout the coat underneath there. And it just looks like each little hair is like a little glitter confetti piece. So you've decided you're going to do it. You're going to take home ringworm kittens. What are you going to do? So you want to make sure that you have an area that's prepared for them. Whatever you do not do an area of carpet. It will not work out. You will not be able to properly sanitize that carpet at all. So making sure that it's an area with like wood, tile is great. Bathrooms are really great. Anywhere where you can just spray it down with disinfectant and easily wipe everything away will make your life so much easier. I recommend getting lots of disposable toys, like the little egg cartons and the paper towel or toilet paper rolls. These are great. You just throw it on the ground. They love it. For puppies, if you're fostering puppies with ringworm, stuffing these with like treats and stuff so they can tear it apart and shred it. They love doing stuff like that. Anything that is less cleaning for you in the end, because it's really hard to properly sanitize like a plushy toy or like a little mouse toy. There's so many little nooks and crannies where the ringworm spores can hide on those. And if they're playing with them, they're just going to keep getting spores on them. So having these, and that way you can easily toss it when you're done, is super helpful. And then do not utilize any cat trees or any sort of any larger items that you use for lots of fosters, because there's no way you're going to be able to properly sanitize it. Making sure that you have some sort of PPE. So that can look very different depending on what you're wanting to do. If you would like some gowns or booties or gloves or anything like that, we can certainly provide that. I would always just have a separate set of clothes that I kept it in the drawer of the bathroom, and I would just step in and throw on like baggy pants, big baggy t-shirt, and then just have gloves and a different pair of like socks that I would throw on when I was in there. And that worked for me. Some people, they don't want to have a dedicated set of clothes for that, which is fine. And anything that's going to protect yourself and your pets at home from exposing them to the ringworm. And then also considering where you're going to do the dips or baths. So we'll talk about all the different types of treatment. We have approved for our fosters to use a pure oxygen shampoo instead of doing the lime dips. We're still going to go into how to do the lime dips and everything like that, which is it's a lime sulfur topical treatment. It is very stinky, and that's why I think a lot of people are not as excited about fostering ringworm, which is fair because it is a very strong smell. But the bath will just be, it's like a regular shampoo that you would use. So it won't be as stinky whenever you're doing that. So figuring out what method would work best for you, where you're going to do that. Another reason why bathrooms are so great, because you can do all the dips and baths and stuff in the room that you're already housing them. And then other things to consider: where are you going to keep all their dirty laundry? And then can they escape out of an enclosure? So I included some pictures of different types of enclosures. This is a plastic enclosure that you can clip together. I have some videos that we'll watch in a little bit of the kitten lady uses these, which they're really easy to sanitize, which is great. This essentially would just become a foam mite. There would be no way to clean out this type of enclosure, but if you are in order to 100% get rid of ringworm. But if you foster ringworm a lot, or if you have really tiny guys and you don't have like the biggest room to set them up, this might work too. So just keeping all that in mind. So we're going to watch a quick video, and this is going to be going over ringworm treatment in the home.
Hey Kelly, should there be sound?
Are you able to hear it now?
Not yet.
Okay, let me. There should be sound. You should be able to hear it. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. I think if you go into the recording settings, there's I'm not gonna remember exactly where it is, but there's a button that you have to click that lets sound come through.
Mm.
I don't think it's on the video, it's in the Zoom setting.
Oh, in the Zoom setting.
Somewhere where the record piece is.
Let's see. Sorry, you guys. The last time I did this, I didn't have any issues with the sound. Share sound. Let me see. I selected share sounds. Let's see if it works.
As they
That
start
should do it.
their hair
Yes.
and look like a
Okay.
bunch of grandpas, I knew something was wrong and that I needed to test them for ringworm. If you suspect that a kitten has ringworm, the very best thing to do is go to a veterinarian. A vet can do a skin scrape and culture it to confirm presence of the fungus. In some cases, these confirmatory tests can take a long time, so it's often good to go ahead and get started with your treatment if the vet does suspect ringworm. The other common method for diagnosing ringworm is a black light or a woods lamp. Certain strains of ringworm will glow under a black light. So when you shine it on them, you may see that their patchy parts look bright purple. Just be careful using this method because not all strains of ringworm will glow. And there are things that will glow that are not ringworm, like certain fibers or food residue or my hair, my eyes, my teeth. Fungus mouth! That better not be ringworm in there. Okay, but seriously, once you know your kittens have ringworm, it's time to take action immediately to stop it from spreading. In general, ringworm treatment is going to have 4 components. 1, quarantine and sanitizing. 2, medicated dip or bath. 3, topical ointment. And 4, oral medication. So let's start with quarantine and sanitation. When you have ringworm kittens, you want to protect your environment, your stuff, and yourself. You'll want to put the kittens in a contained space that you can sanitize daily. My kittens are in a small pen with blankets, bedding, toys, and a litter box, all of which needs to either be able to be totally disinfected or thrown away after each use. All kennels, cages, food dishes, and other items need to be sanitized frequently. Wash all bedding in the washing machine using bleach to kill the spores. Be very mindful not to let the exposed items touch other things in your home, like your furniture or your personal laundry. At least once daily, you want to completely refresh all of your blankets and bedding and spray down the space using a disinfectant. Just wash it using your disinfectant and then it's safe to use again. What kind of disinfectant should you use? In general, people will use one of 2 things. Either they'll use bleach at a ratio of 1 to 32 diluted with water, or they'll use rescue disinfectant, which is what I use in my home. When working in the space with kittens, you'll want to wear gloves. This is going to protect you from making skin contact with the fungus, and it's going to minimize the risk of you spreading the spores to other items in your home. Put on your gloves when you begin working with the kittens and take them off as soon as you're done, being mindful not to wear them when you're touching other items like your phone or your doorknob. If you do touch those items, just sanitize them after. You can also wear special socks or booties while you're in their space and take them off after you leave if you're concerned about getting spores on your feet. If you want to be extra careful, you might consider designating a special, extra big t-shirt to wear as a smock when you're working with them. If you have long hair, make sure you tie it up so it doesn't touch them. I know it's tempting that you want to touch and kiss your kittens, but trust me, when they're living in the fungal jungle, sanitation comes first. So limit your direct contact with them to the best of your ability. I'll blow you a kiss, Catalina. Did you catch it? You did? Okay. Next, let's talk about baths and dips. Twice a week, you're going to bathe or dip your kitten in a medicated bath. There are several different kinds, but first I'll talk about the most commonly used method for working with ringworm kittens, which is lime sulfur dip. Lime sulfur dip is an antimicrobial concentrate that kills fungi. It has a pungent smell like rotten eggs, so it's kind of gross to work with, but it's very effective and it's affordable. You'll follow the instructions on the bottle to dilute the concentrate, and then you'll dip the kittens into the solution, carefully coating their body. Use a washcloth or a cotton pad to carefully apply the dip to the face, avoiding the eyes. Once the kitten is dipped in the lime sulfur, that's it. Don't rinse them, just let them dry completely. The sulfur smell will dissipate as it dries, and that dip will get to work on killing all the spores. Now I use a different medicated bath that contains the antiseptic chlorhexidine and the antifungal ketoconazole. This shampoo is a prescription strength and you have to get it from a veterinarian. There are other similar shampoos you can get, so talk to your veterinarian about the best shampoo for your kittens. And make sure you're using something that is specifically created for cats. Using the shampoo method, you'll wash the kitten with the shampoo thoroughly, being very careful while washing the face using a cloth or cotton pad. Be careful not to get the shampoo into the eyes. Once the kitten is covered in the shampoo, you'll leave the product on for 5 to 10 minutes, then thoroughly rinse it off of them and get them dry and warm as fast as possible. You should be aware that dips and baths can be very traumatic to kittens because they're made to be wet for a period of time. So warm up a heat pad ahead of time and make sure that they are kept warm throughout the entire process. Remember that for young kittens, being cold is a big deal, so don't skip this step. Keep them warm. After I do my shampoo baths, I always dry the kittens immediately and place them on a blanket with a heat pad underneath it. Next, let's talk about topical treatments. There are many topical antifungal treatments, and what's important is that you're using one that is effective and safe for cats. The topical medication my kittens are using is called Tresiderm, and it's a prescription drug that contains an antifungal as well as a broad-spectrum antibiotic that treats inflammation. After the kitten's bath, I put this on their active lesions. On days that the kittens don't get their bath, I clean the lesions using a gauze pad soaked in chlorhexidine. This cleans and prepares the area to be treated using the ointment. My kittens get this ointment once a day, but other topical treatments may be used more frequently. Of course, talk to your vet before using any over-the-counter medication on your kittens and make sure it's safe for them. When in doubt, go the prescription route. Last but not least, let's talk about oral medications. Topical treatments will work from the outside in, but oral medications will work from the inside out. The most common drug used to treat ringworm is called itrafungal, and it's what I'm using with these little guys. This is a medication you'll need to get from your vet, and you'll need to dose it to the kitten's specific weight. When used in conjunction with your topical meds, this is a well-rounded approach that is sure to kick ringworm's butt. So to recap, my routine is medicated baths 2 times a week, cleaning it daily, topical treatments once a day, and oral medication once a day. Be aware that recovery from ringworm can take several weeks, and you should be treating them throughout the entire duration, and even periodically afterwards to make sure that you've kicked its butt. Of course, remember to protect yourself and your home environment during that time. Wear your gloves, sanitize your room and your laundry and your supplies, and be extra mindful about cross-contamination while working with the kittens. Once they're fully recovered, I recommend doing a thorough deep clean before taking on any new kittens, sanitizing the space completely so you can rest assured that your home is fungus-free. So there you have it. I hope I've helped put a little bit of fun in fungus. Was that funny? Tough crowd.
All right. So,
In general, ringworm.
nope. So there are, like you said, there's lots of ways to treat ringworm. The number one way that you're going to be able to combat these spores is to disinfect and reduce the number that are in the environment. So we use Rescue at the shelter. These rescue wipes are available. You can get them on Amazon. I think it's like 25 bucks for one of these containers, and they have like over 100 wipes in them. Rescue is an amazing product that is specifically designed for veterinary use. So it kills all the things that we are trying to combat all the time at the shelter. So the ringworm, panluke, parvo, all that nasty stuff, it gets rid of all of that. So the wipes are really great because there's only a contact time of 1 minute. So you're just wiping. They're really good for doorknobs and lots of little things that you touch all the time that you don't really think about. And then also they have gallon jugs of the Rescue that's available for purchase. It's like $45 for the jug, but that is the concentrate. So you would dilute it down. It would last you a very, very, very long time. So that's something that if you're really into fostering ringworm, I highly recommend investing in. You can also use bleach as well to disinfect, and it works as long as you remove all organic materials from the area. So if there's any little bits of litter or poop or snot or anything like that, it's not going to actively kill the fungal spores. And also bleach is just very hard on lots of surfaces, and you don't want to get stains all over your clothes and things like that. So that is the negative of working with bleach. It is much cheaper, but the Rescue is also great as well. We use the oral medications. So itrofungal is the oral med that we use in the shelter. It's not for all of the kittens. They have to be a certain weight before they can get started on this. And it is very, very syrupy. So just keep that in mind whenever you're using it. It can cause more hair loss on their face if you get it all over their face whenever you're trying to give them their medication. And then it gets all sticky and then causes their hair to peel off. So just keep that in mind whenever you're medicating. And then the topical, so we do have the lime sulfur solution. And then there's also the pure oxygen shampoo that we have approved for our fosters to use. And so if you're interested in fostering, we would send you home that stuff, which won't smell as terrible. And then we also do occasionally we'll use the topical antifungal ointment as well. So that's something that we might send with you too. So there's lots of different methods for the lime dips. If you are interested in doing the lime dips versus the shampoo, or maybe taking both home, seeing what works best. The dips, you definitely have to have a setup for it, and it's a whole process. You want to make sure that you are using like some sort of tub because it can stain a lot of things. When people say lime dip, you think you're dipping a cat into a tub like this. It often turns out more like this bottom picture here, where the kitten's freaking out and you're gonna like ruin your whole bathroom sink. So don't do that and don't recommend it. Also making sure you're wearing gloves because it will stain your hands. Spraying is one technique that I've used, which it just really depends on the cat, what's gonna be the best method. The sprayers are nice because it just puts a light mist on the coat and then you can kind of massage it in. But I think my favorite method is the sponge method, where you just dip a little sponge and you're just petting the cat essentially. And so it really makes it a much more positive experience. They get wet, but they're not totally freaking out about it. And you're just kind of petting them and massaging the lime dip into their coat. It is something that if you were to just pour it onto their coat, it kind of beads off. So by doing the light misting or using the sponge to just kind of let it soak slowly in their coat does allow it to penetrate to the skin. And that's what we're wanting. We don't want to just kind of lightly gloss over their coat. You want to make sure you're getting the entire hair follicle all the way down to the skin. I have seen kittens that are, super long hair, beautiful cats that had ringworm. We thought they were cleared. They go into surgery and they shave them for their spay, and they had ringworm underneath their very dense coat. So that's something that you want to make sure you're penetrating all the way down to the skin. And here is another video, and let me know if the audio doesn't work, but it should work now, for how to do Lyme dips. And this is them doing them in a shelter setting. So this can kind of give you guys an idea of what we're having to do in the shelter right now with almost 50 cats. So it is a lot.
To treat them, they use an antifungal called lime sulfur dip. It's a little bit stinky, but it's very effective at killing ringworm. Woo!
I say it's the smell of healing.
Yeah.
Pump this to get the pressure.
Wow.
And then it'll spray.
Woo!
That's cool.
And then it just start from the bottom. Rub it into the undercoat. Make sure your tail.
This is really,
Easier
really
than what
smart.
we do.
This is easier than what we do. Less traumatic for sure.
And you just have to make sure it gets to the undercoat. Sometimes if they don't feel like it's enough, well.
How long have you guys been using that as a
The
method?
sprayer, this little one, just since we've started here at JC.
So
but we have
smart.
a bigger one that we use.
Really smart.
And then for the face, I just spray a sponge, get that pretty good.
So smart. It's like you guys know what you're doing or something.
Yeah, right.
This is how we're teaching our fosters, and that's how we're getting a lot more fosters for them too.
Right.
And so you don't wash this off, you just leave
Nope,
it on.
you leave it on. All right, and that's pretty much.
Good job! So, this is amazing because Best Friends doesn't dunk their kittens. They actually use a garden sprayer to spray the lime dip onto them. I think this is much less traumatic for them. I feel like I'm spray painting her. Woo! Looking yellow. So, spray my sponge. I'm sorry, I know. I think this is such a good like niche for someone, you know, like if you don't want to do neonatal kittens, if you don't want to do like moms and babies, like ringworm cats and kittens is such a huge need for shelters, right?
And
You
I've
guys
met
have a hard
lot
time.
of people that once they get involved in ringworm become very obsessed with it. It's
Yeah.
one of those weird click things. Like that's kind of how I got. I just started researching and got really obsessed with it.
I think because it's like once you realize animals die because of this, but they don't have to, it's
Right.
like so treatable, then yeah, I could see how like you could become obsessive over like wanting to treat this thing that's not actually that hard to treat because it
And
like saves their life.
It doesn't hurt them in any way. They don't even notice they have it. It's not like scabies and that it's itchy. They don't really know any different.
Oh my god, the tongue. Look at the tongue. The little bleb. I'm sorry, I want to kiss your mouth so bad, but I know that this is not the right time for that. They also use oral antifungal medication to help treat these kittens from the inside out. You might also notice my wonderful outfit. It's really important that you are protecting yourself and also protecting all of the items in the environment when you're working with ringworm kittens. So lots of gloves, gowns, tying your hair up, and there's a lot of cleaning involved. Thanks for watching, and many thanks to Best Friends Los Angeles for your incredible work.
All right.
To treat them,
Okay. So how to do lime sulfur dips and baths. So when I first created this, we were just doing lime sulfur dips across the board, and we had not gotten the pure oxygen shampoo approved. So that will make things a lot easier for everyone. But I still want to make sure we go over all the steps and what to do if you're doing dips and how it's different from doing the baths. The main thing, like in the first video, you're wanting to deep clean, you know, pretty regularly to make sure that you're getting rid of any spores that are in the environment. You definitely want to replace everything that the kittens are going to be introduced to the day that you're doing dips, because you wouldn't want to do dips or bathe them and then put them back into an environment that's just covered in spores. That would defeat the purpose of all the bathing that you're doing. So by making sure that you're deep cleaning those days and that they have a fresh, clean area to go into is really important. So the first step is just that you want to remove them from their area, put them either in like a plastic bin or carrier, whatever works best for you. Make sure that you have a spot to stick them into when they're done with the treatment. If they are getting the lime dip, they're supposed to just air dry with that. So I wouldn't recommend putting them directly into their clean area, just because they're still going to be a little soggy and you don't want them to get lime dip everywhere. So just having a separate little bin or carrier for them to hang out in while that air dries a little bit will be helpful. For the shampoo, you can just kind of towel dry them really quickly and put them back into their clean environment. They should be fine with that. If you have the lime sulfur solution, you will have to dilute it. It's very important. And whenever you pick up, if you're wanting to take home the lime sulfur solution, we'll go over how to dilute that. If you don't dilute it and you just use the pure lime sulfur, it can cause chemical burns, not only on you, but on your fosters. So we want to make sure that you're diluting properly, making sure you lay down towels. You'll have lots of towels, just, because things can get messy. And that if you're doing the dips, you want it to be in a bin or a bathtub or on your countertop. And then using either the sponge or sprayer method to apply the lime dip. I typically will just put a towel down and then use the sponge and just wipe down the kitten with that. And one thing that I had not mentioned yet was that if you're using the sponge, that you want to make sure that you are not using that sponge over and over again. So once you do dips, if you have like 2 kittens, ideally using separate sponges for each kitten and then tossing them would be ideal. If you use the same one for the same litter, I think that would be okay. I would go from like the most hairless to the least hairless. And then toss it and use a different one the next time you do dips. That would probably be very helpful, because you don't want to just keep reintroducing. It's going to have spores and stuff on it. So you don't want to keep reusing that same sponge. Also, it'll be very gross. And then once they're thoroughly coated, then you want to put them into an area to dry, making sure that they have a heating source. It's really, really important, because they get cold, then they can crash. We definitely do not want that. And then you need to deep clean wherever the kittens are staying. So removing all the bedding, giving them fresh litter boxes, the little the trays that hold canned wet food and stuff like that. Those are great because you can just toss them. Spraying the area with rescue. This will be the 1:16 ratio. So 1 part rescue, 16 parts water, and letting that set for 5 minutes and then wipe clean. If you're using bleach, you can use you can use 1:10 ratio, you can use 1:32 ratio. There's studies that have shown both are effective, but that would need to sit for 10 minutes. And then you are going to prepare the area with fresh bedding, toys, bowls, heating source, all that good stuff. And then the bedding that you did have, you would wash it with your normal detergent and then add bleach to it to make sure that that bleach is going to kill any spores that might be in there. And then once they've all been dipped and they're reasonably dry, you can stick them into their living area. And now we have a quick little video just to go over how to give oral medications to the kittens. And I know this is all very kitten heavy. I would say 90% of our ringworm cases are kittens. There's the occasional adult cat, and then we do get the occasional puppy. But these are all things that will apply to adult cats and dogs as well. But the kittens, they're typically a lot tinier, easier to manage and keep in tiny spaces. So more likely to be able to get out to foster.
For this video, we're talking only about oral medication that goes into the kitten's mouth. When you get your oral medication from your vet, make sure you check the expiration date and that it's not expired, and make sure that you know how to store it. Some drugs are going to be stored room temperature, and other drugs are going to be stored in the refrigerator. So for instance, this drug, Clavenlox, comes as a powder, which is stored at room temperature. And then when you mix that powder with water, you shake it up and it becomes their oral medication, which needs to be stored in the fridge. So you have your drug, you know where to store it, but how much of it do you give to the kitten? Well, dosing is done by weight, and your veterinarian is going to give you the dosing information for the kitten. Now, it's important to note that the weight of a kitten changes very frequently because these little guys are gaining a lot of weight every single day. So you want to make sure you talk to your vet about what dosing is going to look like over the course of time, especially if they're going to be on a drug for a week or 10 days. You know, their weight is going to change and the dose might change as well. But you don't have to worry about dosing because that's the job of the veterinarian. They're going to tell you the dose. Your job is simply to correctly interpret the dose. So let's talk about how to do that. So you may have noticed that kittens are quite small, and their doses are usually going to be pretty small as well because they're dosed by weight. This is a 1 cc syringe, and that's usually what you're going to be using for giving oral medication to a kitten. But there's a lot of different numbers on here, and it's very easy if you are new to giving medications to get it wrong. So here you can see that this is a 1 cc syringe, and at the end it's going to say 1.0 cc's or 1.0 mLs. So this is 1 milliliter. And then if you go down, you can see there's 0.9, 0.8, 0.7, and so on. And then at the end here is 0.1 milliliters. I want to illustrate to you why it's really important to understand which dose you've been given. So with my 1 cc syringe, I'm going to draw up 1 milliliter. So here's what it looks like if you pull up 1.0 milliliters of medication. Now let's do 0.1. So here we have 0.1 milliliters of medication. You can see that 0.1 is 1/10 as much as 1.0. So if you've been given a dose of 0.1, it's really important not to give 1.0 because that's 10 times too much. But with little kittens, depending on the medication, you might even be given a dose as small as 0.01. There's little teeny tiny lines on here, and each of those is 0.01 cc's. So I'm going to pull up just 0.01 now. So there's 0.01, and you can see this is just a little whisper of medication. And it's really important that if you've been dosed 0.01 for a drug, that you don't accidentally do 0.1 or 1.0. There's magnitudes of difference here that can be very harmful to a kitten if you don't pull up the correct amount. So these are my updated doses for the kittens that I'm caring for right now. Their doses have increased as they've gained weight. So today, Chris's dose is 0.1. So let's pull up 0.1 of medication. There's 0.1. So now it's time for Chris to have his medication. Now kittens and cats have a nice little gap on the side of their mouth, and it's perfect for opening up and wiggling a little syringe in there. What we want to do is we want to open the mouth from the side, and we want to squirt the medication onto their tongue. What you don't want to do is squirt it from the front towards the back because the kitten can aspirate. We don't want to cause aspiration, so we're not going to shoot this towards the back of his mouth. We are going to slowly put it onto his tongue and let him swallow it. So I'll gently hold his head, wiggle this into the side, and apply it to the tongue. Good job! Way to go! Now it's Nigel's turn. Nigel's dose is 0.09. So you might see a 9 here, but that's 0.9. That's 10 times too much. So we're just gonna pull up 0.09. 0.09 looks pretty close to 0.1. It's just one little notch less. So I'm gently holding his head, putting this in the side, and I'm putting it onto his tongue, and he swallows. Was that delicious? Not really. Okay. Debbie's dose is 0.08. These lines are super tiny, so you have to be pretty precise. There's her 0.08. I'm gonna hold her head, put this in the side, and lightly apply it to the tongue. Good job, Debbie. Now Clem and Debbie are around the same weight, so he's also gonna get 0.08. Now something that can happen is you might put your syringe into the fluid, pull it up, and realize that you have a big air bubble in there. That air bubble is not delivering any medication to your kitten. So what you can do is put it back in, push it out with the air bubble, pull it back up, and the air bubble should be gone. All right, so we're pulling up 0.08. There we go. You ready? I'm gonna hold his head, put it into the side, and there's your medication. Ugh. Nice work, little guy. Last but not least, we've got little Jimmy. Jimmy's the smallest, and his dose is the smallest too. His dose is 0.07. Now remember, his dose is not 0.7, it's 0.07, a very small amount. Make sure there's no air bubbles. I know, you're ready for a meal. This isn't a meal, you're in for a rude awakening. This is medicine. I'm going to hold his head, plop it in the side of his mouth, and gently plunge it onto his tongue. You did it! You did it! You had your medicine! And that's it. Don't forget to properly store your medication. If it needs to go in the fridge, put it immediately back into the fridge. And don't forget to write down what you've done. Some medications.
All right. So the oral medications that we're using is the itraconazole, also known itrafungal or intrafungal. And that is typically, it's going to be like 0.1 to 0.2 cc's for kittens. If you have like mom and kittens or an adult cat, it's going to be significantly more. It's usually like 1 milliliter. So that if they're eating wet food reliably, and if you mix it in there and they eat it, then that's great. If they are not, then you have to insert it into their mouths. And that can definitely pose some challenges because it is so sticky. And if you're giving an adult cat a lot of it, so let us know if you have any issues with that. But usually the kittens, it's a tiny little amount, so it's not a huge ordeal. So what to expect when you're fostering ringworm? So lots of cleaning, making sure that environment's clean so they can recover quickly. You'll have vet rechecks. So for the puppies and kittens, or if it's, you know, a nursing mom, you'll want to make sure that we're getting weight rechecks every week. So we'll follow up with you guys to see what their weight is at. And that way you're giving the proper amount of medication. And then every 2 weeks, they'll need to come in to get seen by the vet and for us to do a Woods lamp check and see how everything is going with their skin and their hair regrowth. Making sure, you want to make sure that you're having a positive experience with the kittens, you know, give them lots of treats and positive reinforcement. So by, you know, after dip time, then giving everyone little snacks and just lots of affection and praise. You know, you want it to be a positive experience for them and not dread every morning when they get their meds or every time they have to get their dips. You want it to be positive for them, which usually means involving lots of treats. And then expect to have your fosters for 1 to 2 months. These are a little bit longer than the typical kitten or puppy fosters, depending on how severe it is. And really just the kitten and puppy's immune systems, that's how fast it will clear up. So anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks, I would just expect a minimum of 4 weeks. 8 weeks would be fantastic. There are some where, you know, it takes a little bit longer. There's like a one stubborn hair that just keeps glowing, but typically these are things that we see in the shelter. So in foster, they do clear up a lot faster because they are so much less stressed in that environment. So recommended supplies, these are a list of, a lot of these have to do with if you're doing the dips versus the shampoo. And so if you're doing shampoo, a lot of the stuff you're not going to need, but having some sort of PPE, definitely having gloves just because you don't want to be washing your hands constantly, and maybe just some shoe covers or wear some, you know, your special ringworm socks when you go into the room or something, just so you're not touching everything and then touching everything outside of that room. Having a scale is super, super important. So if you don't already have a little food scale for your foster babies, we can provide you with that. I don't know if we'll have one big enough for puppies, but we can cross that bridge when we get there. I think the puppy we have right now is relatively tiny as far as puppies go. But for kittens, you can just use a little food scale. And that's really important to make sure that we're giving them the proper medication to actually treat the ringworm. Making sure you have some sort of heating source. Playpens are great, or if you just have a, you know, tiled bathroom that you can just keep them in and spray everything down is fantastic too. Getting a black light, these little flashlight black lights, if you decide you're really into fostering ringworm and this is like your thing, I think these are only like $10 on Amazon. So they're great to have so that when you're doing the dips or when you're bathing, you're able to focus your attention to certain areas, or if there's, a particular spot on their face, you can get a little Q-tip and get right in there. And then all the disposable toys and having rescue spray, wipes, bleach. You need some sort of disinfectant to protect your home. And then having lots of extra towels and bedding. We can also provide this as well. But if you have some, I have my animal towels that I've set aside for my fosters and my own pets. So how to clean after you return your fosters. So this is if you are fostering ringworm animals and you want to bring them back, or if you have any fosters in your home that do break with ringworm, this is what you would need to do. So removing all porous surfaces. So if, say I had a litter of kittens and then I had a little cat tree climber and they had climbed all over it, I would have to throw that away. That would be, unless I'm going to continue fostering ringworm, it's no longer safe. It needs to just be tossed. Any other porous surfaces like bedding, plastic toys, fluffy stuff like that, all needs to be removed from the area. And then removing any organic matter. So if there's any snot, if there's any poop, pee, litter, bits of food, anything that could be considered organic matter, you need to remove that. And then you want to spray the entire affected area with either the rescue with the 1:16 ratio or the diluted bleach. You can do 1:10 or 1:32 and allow it to sit for 10 minutes. And in order for this to be effective, there can't be any organic matter. So if you're spraying a little spot with poop, treat that spot. And then once that's cleared, then spray everything. If you're not fostering any more ringworm, I recommend just tossing the bedding. I would never use like your favorite blanket or something has sentimental value. I would not recommend doing that for any of your fosters because it'll probably get destroyed, but especially not for ringworm. And then if you are going to continue fostering ringworm puppies and kittens, you can wash that bedding, but just add extra bleach to it, and that will hopefully take care of all the spores. And then you'll be able to have a clean, sanitized area ready for new puppies and kittens. So a few things to remember: spores can be airborne, so just wiping down any other surfaces in the room that will help limit the number of spores as much as possible. Clean up as much as you can. The lime dip, it can destroy jewelry and other stuff. So just remove all your jewelry. Don't get it near your sink or anything like that. You must dilute the lime dip if that's what you're using, because it can cause chemical burns. Making sure you're ventilating the room when you're doing dips and cleaning. If you're, like I said before, the bathrooms are great because you can just, the sink's right there. There's usually lots of tile, which is easy to clean. And then also if you have a vent in there, you can just turn that on and it'll help air things out. Not all ringworm glows with a woods lamp. So this is something that we might have someone come in, they have hair loss. We'll do a woods lamp test. It's not glowing, but if it gets worse, that's definitely something you want to keep in mind. And not all hair loss is going to be ringworm too, is something to consider, but about 90% does glow under the woods lamp. So it's something to keep in mind. And then if you suspect any of your fosters of having ringworm, just submit a medical form to us. And that way we can get them scheduled to come in as soon as possible and hopefully start treatment. And if they do end up testing positive for ringworm, just keep in mind, you've already had them in your home. They have already, the exposure has happened, the damage is done. So if you're able to continue fostering them, that would be great for them. It would be great for us. It would be a huge help to keep them out of the shelter. So something to keep in mind if that does happen. And then trying to make the treatment a positive experience overall, which typically for fostering these guys in your home, they're already having a great time, having a lot more fun, and they probably would be at the shelter. So just trying to keep the dip and bath process as positive as possible. So here are some resources. A lot of this information is from Cornell's website. The Kitten Lady has a lot of great stuff on how to treat ringworm in a home. And then the National Kitten Coalition has a lot of great stuff about it as well. And then there are some excellent, if you're into reading scientific journals, there's some articles by Karen Moriello. She has done lots of research on ringworm, so there's lots of fascinating things there if you want to check those out. And then these are 3 of our children that are needing foster right now. So this is our ringworm puppy Nixie, and I cannot remember this little kitten's name, and this is Herman. So these guys are all awaiting foster that currently have ringworm that are in our care. So if anyone is interested, please, please, please let us know. Email the foster inbox and we can get you set up as soon as possible, and we can go over stuff in person too if you have any questions, because I know it's a lot of information if you've never fostered ringworm children before. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm going to stop the recording.